So often what happens when the proposals come back in, we highlight the things in orange that we think are overpriced. We highlight the things in yellow where we believe there are better products on the market. And when you combine both of those together, it will often result in a usually 8 to 12% reduction in the cost of that proposal that was submitted to you in the first place.
A good project manager on the ground here, regardless of where you are in this and where you fit into that sort of labeling, can be worth their weight in gold. And it's just to have someone on your side with that kind of experience who knows what's going on and can explain to you why certain things are happening. They can almost, they're like a sort of a soothsayer and say, I know what's going to happen. It's this project, it's this developer. I bet you in 6 weeks, this is what's going to come up. And then sure enough, 6 weeks, they're like, oh, there we go. And just having that peace of mind will save you money, it will save you time. It will reduce the stress because it can be super stressful, especially on the residential project, especially if it's your baby, it's your thing, this is what you want to do. Just having that additional resource on your side, looking out for you, that would have to be the top recommendation.
How are you?
Welcome to Property Talk from Louise's Lounge. On today's episode, we have Barry Cummings and David Cook, co-founders of Contractors Direct. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me on the couch this morning.
Pleasure to be here.
Great.
Programs.
These are good partners, aren't you? You know, you finish each other's sentences.
We're not always in that much sync, but
in sync. Love it. Great topic today, right on trend topic, all about renovations. So let's get straight into it. So what are the most overlooked renovation mistakes that have caused the biggest or significant financial losses anyone can make?
it's almost always time and unrealistic budgets. So if you think about it, whether it's a villa or whether it's an office, the client doesn't normally think about design or fit out until they've purchased the property. Now, to actually design that space, if you go to an actual design consultancy, it's going to take anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks. That's 4 to 8 weeks where the villa remains empty and you're paying the mortgage on it. So that's the first thing. Then whatever's designed needs to be converted into a BOQ. That then needs to be floated. And then you need to negotiate with the contractors. That's another 4 weeks by the time everything's signed off. So there's 3 months where the villa has been untouched before you can actually even start the work, right? And then you got the approvals. So time is probably the most overlooked thing that ends up causing a lot of money, because usually the person is either paying rent where they are now, or they have to move out of their previous property because they've sold it and now they're living in a hotel. So that's one cost. The other one is the unrealistic budgets with renovations. So a lot of people, they'll take to Pinterest, they'll pull together Pinterest boards. They'll be like, I love that kitchen. I love that flooring. I love this bathroom, all that kind of stuff. And when the designer then transposes that into 3Ds and into a BOQ, the specification is often super high. And designers love to showcase what their capabilities are. They also love to show in visual format the client's vision for the villa or the office, whatever it is. What often ends up happening is when the quotes come back, it's way above their budget. It's like, well, if you had disclosed what the budget was at the start, they could have designed within that budget, because then it just means that the whole tender process then takes much longer.
Is that your advice, that people should actually say, look, this is my budget, this is what I want, give it to me within the budget? They go the other way instead. This is my dream, and then the budget goes out the window.
Yeah. It's a bizarre one, because you'll have some clients that will say, well, I'm not going to tell you what my budget is. Like, okay, fine. Well, certainly what we do is when we're speaking to people, we say, right, okay, what we can do is tell you how much you should be prepared to spend. So it's a 4-bed villa in Arabian Ranches. It's 4,000 square feet. It's a full, demolition and retrofit. Historically, these projects have cost between 900 and 1.5 million. That expensive? You don't have to go that expensive. And now that we know that you don't have 900 to 1.5 million, just tell us what it is. We can then make sure that the contractors are fully aware, so that they then design and specify so that it comes within your budget. So that's a tough one. You then have other clients where they do expect a full villa refurb for half or less than half of what the actual cost is. What do you do then? It's something will be sacrificed, because there's contractors queuing up out there. None of them on our platform, thankfully, but there's contractors queuing up out there to say, yeah, we can do it for $500,000 in that example. And then
they're not going to get what they want.
No chance.
Nothing close.
Corners. There's so many corners cut, the house ends up round. It's tough. But I think if people, at the point that they make a decision that they're going to buy, like for example, Dubai Hills, you knew that you wanted to buy in Dubai Hills. And so irrespective of what villa you would have ended up with, you knew it would have been a 4-bed and it would have been this size. The PDF plans are available online. Get the PDF plans, start working with a designer whilst you're looking for the property and before you purchase it. Get the design done before you actually transact. So then the house maybe is empty for, 4 weeks before the contractors actually move in. But at least you know what's possible with the space. You figured out the budget. And then you could just get started.
So it's kind of don't wait till you buy something, actually do the groundwork leading up to it to manage your expectations.
100%. 100%.
And on that budget thing, that is such a massive issue with what we do is that when we started out, we put together the fit out cost calculator just so that you could get an expectation. You don't have to tell us or anyone, but put it in. It's powered by all of the data from all of the projects we've done.
Is that on your website?
Yeah,
Okay,
it's on our website. So that you can, again, you don't have to have that moment of going, in front of people. You can go there and go, okay, I think that's this. And then you can look at the number and go, okay.
You get a bit of an idea.
That's more than I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move these things around and see, okay, well, this is where we're sitting. Then go out there and say, okay, well, this is realistically where we are. Otherwise, you get into that situation where David explained, and they're just mind blown because it's just thinking, well, surely I can do this. And then you get to the reality of how much it's going to cost per square foot for the materials, for the resources. And that number is a lot more than was initially anticipated. But at least with the fit out cost calculation, say, okay, well, this is where we're at. How do we work to that?
What about the complexity side of it for inexperienced investors? We've talked about the time, we've talked about the cost. But is there like a complexity of what goes involved? You mentioned BOQ. What does that stand for?
Bill of quantities. It's the detailed proposal, line item by line item. But to be honest, the best advice that we can give is to hire a project management consultant, because they will make back the money that you spend on them just through doing things the right way around, and helping everybody understand what you're getting for your money, how long things take, and so on and so forth. It takes the pressure off the clients, because you've got a full-time job. We've got full-time jobs. Everyone here's got full-time jobs. You don't want to have the distraction of thinking, are the contractors on site? Have I done the right thing? All that kind of stuff. If you hire a project manager, he or she will involve you for the least amount that you want possible, but they will keep you involved as much as you want. So if you were a housewife, you could be there every day if you want. I wouldn't recommend it. You'll drive everyone bananas, but
take them sandwiches.
Yeah, exactly. But when you bring in a project management consultant, they will, assuming that they have the necessary experience, they will not just help set expectations and draft a high level timeline. So this is where we are today. This is what's going to happen in the next 4 weeks. That's what's going to happen in 8 weeks. And then we're on site and the build is going to take this long. You can then start planning. You're hearing from someone who's experienced in doing this, and that's almost set in stone.
They're independent from the contractors you're using, so they're
You can't rely on the project manager from the contractor side, because that project manager is being paid by the contractor. So in the event of a dispute, who are they going to side with?
Do you think this, for a lot of investors, do you think they see the project management consultant as a unnecessary expense, yet you would say it's actually significantly required? It could save you money in the long
run? Yeah, 9 times out of 10 it will. Because it's one of those scenarios where you think, well, how hard could this be? and it's
I'll go and check on it every week and it'll be fine.
And it's that naivety of not really understanding. So, well, I'm sure I can manage this. And then to David's point, it's like, how am I going to manage this with everything else that I've got? And then suddenly the first thing that crops is like, what is that? what do you mean? And this just then pushes the first point of the issue. Timelines is longer that you're like, what does that mean? Oh, I'll figure it out. I'll go and research it. And then there's another movement. It's that a project manager with experience can come in and say, let me just save you all of that. And at the end of the day, it's the most valuable resource that we have is our time. It's like, yes, I could spend 10 hours figuring this out, or he can do it in 10 minutes. Okay, maybe it would be worthwhile getting my 10 hours back and he does what he's good or she's good at in managing this whole thing. So yeah, it would definitely save time and money at the end of the day.
Okay. What their main functionality is to, apart from time and money, what's their scope? What do they do for the clients?
So first of all, it would be making sure that any contractors that are going to be bidding for the job deserve to be there. So experience, manpower, cash flow, capabilities. Every different project has different characteristics. You then have to marry up the characteristics of that project with the contractors. When the proposals come back in, making sure that the cost of each of the line items is fair and reasonable based on today's rates. So it's called benchmarking. So making sure that you're not unnecessarily paying for something that should be 15% cheaper. And then making sure that the BOQ the proposal is complete, because the contractors, in order to hit a budget, often what they'll do is they will leave things out that you can't see. So we've discussed the AC. So if the contractor really wants to bring the price down, they might price for removing the ceiling, but they'll keep the ducting. And the ducting is gross and it might not lend itself to the new ceiling design. That's a potential variation that will come up as the project progresses. But where we have a significant impact is in what's known as value engineering. So the contractors will propose a set of materials, products, brands and product numbers and all the rest of it. We've been doing this now for 15 years. And we'll look at some of the brands and product numbers. And unless the client has specifically said, I want this bath or I want this office chair, whatever it is, we know that in a lot of instances, there are better value products in the market that we will be able to propose. So often what happens when the proposals come back in, we highlight the things in orange that we think are overpriced. We highlight the things in yellow where we believe there are better products on the market. And when you combine both of those together, it will often result in a usually 8 to 12% reduction in the cost of that proposal that was submitted to you in the first place. So if the proposals come in at $1 million, we know that by the time we finished our exercise, we're down to 900.
Yeah. And probably covers the cost of your project management consultant.
Do you know what? It's a guarantee we stand by.
And a lot less headache. It sounds like a due diligence process, isn't it, with your best interest. So have you had, or can you tell me about the most shocking renovation disasters you've seen? I'm sure you haven't experienced any yourselves, but
not through our contractors.
Have you heard or seen some out there where you've gone, no, what happened?
Yeah, we've seen some absolute shockers. We've, so a lot of the time, just to give you two examples from last year, when we talk about project management to clients, they actually understand the role that we serve. And, we bring the proposals in. Often the client will say, okay, well, I also want to include this proposal because he did the villa over the road. I want to include this one because it's the wife of my husband's golfing partner, whatever it is. And they will usually come in, not usually, sometimes they will come in cheaper and then the client will ghost us, and they won't answer the calls, won't respond because I feel bad. I took their time, I took their experience, they gave me lots of advice, but I feel like I'm making the right decision. One of the projects was in Jumeirah Park and the other project was a Meadows villa. Different people, but the outcome was the same. They paid the down payment, the approvals went in, they started the work, and then the contractor basically was sending one or two people to site.
Oh, it's just getting slower and progression.
Yeah. And again, going back to the timeline, both of them called us back. I'm sure there's more that don't call us back. Yeah. It was like, what do we do? I'm like, well,
should have come to us.
Believe us and trust us, So we, both of those were what we call rescue projects where we go in, we get everybody around a table. So contractor, client and ourselves. And we try to come up with an amicable way forward So
this is with the existing contractors that are kind of running slow. You're trying to mitigate and move them. Okay.
Exactly. Because if they're capable of delivering excellent projects, it's easier to actually keep them on the project and deliver something excellent. But they do need constant oversight and supervision because the handover date would have kept moving. And so it's right, guys. Do we all agree that this is the scope of work that's left and it can be done in 8 weeks? Okay, fantastic. This is now what we will be doing from our part. We're going to do daily site visits. We want to sign off all the materials when they arrive before you install them. You call us when you close the ceiling. You call us when, all this is happening so that we can make sure that, workmanship standards are high as well. But the worst one, unfortunately, was this year. So there was a very sizable residential design and build contractor that had been around for a while, and they had done a lot of beautiful projects in Jumeirah Golf Estates, beautiful all over Dubai.
Expecting the reputation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And 10 months ago, no, July last year, no, so 8 months ago. So 8 months ago, we were bidding for the project management scope for a Jumeirah Islands villa. And part of the due diligence that we carry out is we meet the owners of the contracting companies. We check out their trade license and insurance companies, make sure they're covered. We speak to their previous clients as well. But we actually go and see jobs that are live. Because first of all, we want to see that it's flooded with labor. We want to see that the health and safety standards, just the minimums being adhered to. Anything above that, brilliant. We know they're taking health and safety seriously. But when we were driving round, we were like, why are all the sites empty? The hoarding was up, work had been happening, but the sites were empty. And so we raised an alarm with the client and we just said, look, that's a red flag. Either the staff have completely left, or they've won so much work that they don't have enough staff and they're just moving people around like chess pieces. Whichever client shouts the loudest, they move the staff there, Anyway, fast forward to, I think it was in January it all unfolded. We're March. The owner of that company was, we're led to believe, deliberately taking projects, securing the advance payments, and whatever live projects that were reaching the next milestone to get that payment, and then he left the country. And so our website, our landline was just red hot. Like, it was like, we've been left in the dark. They've skipped the country. They've taken $1 million dirhams of our money. We haven't got any more money left, or we've only got 500,000 left for, whatever it is. And we were just like, holy smokes, guys, we need to come up with a plan for these guys.
So what do they do mid-project when, because that must happen, as you say, you've just happened recently. What do they do?
And all of the approvals, the permits, because a lot of these projects, they were doing extensions as well. They were all in that contractor's
So all the approvals are linked with the contractor. So you're back to the start.
Yeah.
Basically.
So that was particularly challenging. It was challenging, one, because of, the amount of resource that was required from our side, just to give free advice more than anything. So go around, take photos, give them a plan, give them our recommendations, and just say, hey, through the Contractors Direct platform, you'll find the best 5 contractors for this community or whatever else it is. But you got to go through the courts first. You've got to, this is the process you need to go through to get that contractor off to bring another contractor on. And it was just a mess. I don't know how much that person left the country with, but it was in the tens of millions, we're told. I mean, just the 3 clients that we onboarded after the whole debacle, the one of them was out of pocket by 600. The other one was out of pocket by just over 300. And actually the last 2, I think, were just over 300. Like there's $1 million dirhams there just from the ones that we won. And there were loads more.
And they didn't have project management consultants?
No.
They went straight to the contractors?
I'm so thankful that, number one, they weren't on our platform to start with. Number 2, we weren't on any of those projects because I would have been feeling extremely guilty that my team didn't pick up on that.
Okay. You do that part of the due diligence and the legalities. I mean, what do you do to find that trusted contractor that has the reputation, has the insurance, that hopefully you're not going to get into this? What do investors do?
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough one, right?
It is, yeah. And there's recourse, but it has to go to the, the courts and whatnot from that side of things. But we hope that they are the exception rather than the rule. And, the last few years has kind of shown that. Whereas 10 years ago, there was perhaps more of that kind of thing happening where there was a lot more of the, Wild West, so we approach saying where things
contractors
were just,
turning up on horses.
Yeah, literally.
In the car.
Yeah. Just give me the money and off they went.
Barry, what about for you? What about the completed? Let's say something is actually completed. It's a renovation project, but by far the worst and maybe had to be redone. Does that happen?
Yeah, it does, because sometimes it again, not on our projects, but ones usually where there isn't a project manager just keeping an eye on what's going on. And you end up in scenarios where high-end properties where people are, when we are asked to go and just do some sort of the checks, and there's no waterproofing behind certain things in bathrooms or anywhere where there's water. So even this can be, especially in this country, can only be weeks when mold is starting. And you're talking about, 10, 15, 20 million dirham fit outs and more expensive villas. And then something that Dave said, they're just the health and safety ones where you've probably seen it as well, where you walk around and you see that they're using some sort of heavy machinery and you've just got 3 wires plugged directly into
the fingers, the 4 fingers.
And you
sandals.
See it. Yeah, sandals, no safety equipment, no PPE, and just these little things which again you think, well, what's the worst that could happen? But unfortunately, the worst that can happen is pretty tragic and does happen. And then just to the point of, one of the worst ones I've had, and it was a number of years ago, and it was when somebody had done the landscaping and pool for their outside area, gone for the cheapest option to do it. And the end result, actually, in this case, was that the ground was live because they'd messed up.
They hadn't put the water in the pool.
Yeah, so no, and then they did put the water in the pool, and the guy was electrocuted. Yeah, anything. How do these things happen? So yeah, it can be the ultimate tragedy that goes on, and then there's the silly things that we see going on. But it's, it kind of reminds us sometimes just that what we need to do is to really, take control of this, because the outcome sometimes can be literally, tragic.
Sometimes the safety aspect's overlooked. You just reminded me of a story that I remember where, the fabricated pools.
Fiberglass
pools being lifted by a crane over a house and the cables not being correctly attached. And just as it got over the house, the pool collapsed and went through the house.
Went through the roof.
Oh,
so yeah, so safety.
Wow.
That I remember that story a long time ago. And well, I don't think it would happen now. Of course,
you'd hope not, but you never know. I've seen a few hot tubs and jacuzzis being moved around in communities.
Swinging.
I'm not sure that's.
Yeah.
So what about the legality side of the approvals? Because developers, or wherever you have a property or a house or an office, have certain regulations. Can you give us a bit of an idea of what those are, what approvals, or what people have to think about? Is there, certain increase if people want to enhance the property size, regulations to boundaries, approval process, payments? Can you give a bit of an overview of what do you have to think about and how do you do it?
So first of all, extensions are tremendously expensive. For the 2 of the biggest developers, obviously Nakheel and Emaar. Emaar used to be the preferred developer for property developers, if that makes sense. Because if you wanted an extension, it was a straightforward process and there was a fixed fee. If you wanted a small extension, you're still paying the same, but you could, stick a double story, add another third to the size of the property, and it was a fixed fee. They changed their rules very recently, and they adopted a similar policy to what Nakheel is doing, which they charge you now per square foot. Which, and by the way, how you've got a porch. So you've got your front door, 2 walls, and then you got the standing area. Just to push your door out to the edge, they're charging you for that. Even though you're not actually building anything outside the property, you're increasing the net internal area.
Yeah.
And we're talking tens of thousands of dirhams just for that one very minor modification that you can do over a weekend. So as far as the legalities are concerned, I suppose there's two things. Number one, do it right first time round. There's a lot of people that think, oh, well, no one's going to see because it's at the back of the house, or no one will notice because, I look onto a road, whatever it is.
They try to do their
We'll try to
renovations
shortcut
without
it.
the approvals.
Yep.
That's a real estate agent's nightmare, by the way. When we're trying to
Yeah.
sell a
And you know
property
why.
and you say,
Yeah.
do you have the approvals first? No.
Yeah,
Got to bring it
absolutely.
down.
Even so, Nikhila are probably a little bit more strict to the point where and my friend who just bought an Alpha Jan, he had a sunshade to protect the cars. That wasn't approved by Nikhil. They stopped the sale of the house going through until he took it down.
But was it permanent structure? It was just one of the...
It's bolted to the either side of the garage. So bolted to either side of the garage with a sunshade. And they stopped the sale of the house. It's not even an extension. It's like, wow, pergolas. Everybody thinks it's a freestanding structure. You just drill it into the ground and it's temporary, right? But you put a pergola in, you've got to tell them, and you need to pay to get the permission to put this pergola in. When you buy a house here, what blows my mind is you think that house is yours and you can do whatever you want with it. No, they'll even tell you what color you have to paint it. So maybe you get 2 or 3 shades. So first of all, do it right. Second of all, you have to budget for it, because we had a Palm Villa where the approvals went in before the massive hike. And they were adding, I think, about 4,000 square feet of built up. Now, on the old rates, it was already eye-watering, but the resale cost per square foot made it worth it, because they were like, okay, I'm spending X, but the resale, I make X plus 60%. Let's proceed. And then it was just getting unnecessarily delayed. And we're like, we don't understand why.
The approval process?
The approvals,
was?
for the
Okay.
extension. And then, they announced on Monday, whatever it was, that rates have gone up. And now it was cost prohibitive to do the extension. Yeah. It was.
Yeah. And suddenly the
massive.
approval was, oh yeah, you can do it. This is how much it's going to cost.
Why do the developers do this? When
mean,
they're going
there's
to
a
get
few
less people
theories.
doing these projects.
Yeah.
The increase on service charges, built up area, great, fine. But people aren't going to be able to afford to do this if the approval prices are just as high as your renovation or your build.
People were buying the big 3-bed, the big 3-bed in Arabian Ranches 1, and also the Meadows, the big 3 beds in the Meadows and the Lakes, with the intention of extending it one way or another to get the extra bedroom. And extensions don't need to be expensive. It's the approval costs and the fees that make it expensive. What was the original question? Sorry. Theory. So I heard a theory and it actually makes sense. I won't say who the developer is, but apparently there was going to be an insane amount of new stock that was going to be coming onto the market. And so what they wanted people to do was not spend their time and energy on purchasing that 3-bed and extending it. They wanted them to buy the 4-bed in the new community, even though it was 2 years away or whatever else it was.
So the developers have new launches.
Yeah.
New
Yeah.
stock
Yeah. Buy
coming
the new
on.
stuff.
And you know what? That kind of makes sense. I get it. But when you look at the Ranches 1 plot sizes versus, a couple of, that they go from, a nice putting green to
Not much more
a
than
fish
actual
finger
grass.
box.
Yeah.
Yeah, the plots
Yeah.
are a lot
Yeah.
smaller now, and then they're prohibiting these extra. So if you're not doing an actual extension, increasing of square foot, is it quite easy if you're redoing a kitchen or bathrooms? Is the approval process quite easy, or is that also?
Yeah, that's
A lot
straightforward.
easier.
Yeah.
Although sometimes it's developer specific, because sometimes they can just be a pain for the sake of it. We don't know why, but a lot less than anything structural for sure.
The things that normally take the time are, so if you think about the ground floor of a house and you've got the garden and you've got 2 sets of patio doors, 2 sets of patio doors, 2 sets of patio doors, a lot of people want to get rid of the pillar and put a nice long set of bifold doors in. That is what takes the time, because if you remove one of those pillars and they happen to be, load bearing, you then need to put a beam up You then have to get an engineer to do all of the structural calculations that then has to form part of the submission. So that does take time.
There's still the structural element, but it's not an expansion on the project.
But if you wanted to renovate only the inside of your house, it's a piece of cake. It's the process can be as quick as, a week to get the permits to actually start the work, up to maybe 3 weeks max. But in that time, you're normally, negotiating with the contractor, figuring out the timelines. So there's not you're probably moving out of the villa or, whatever it is. But everything inside the villa is a piece of cake. A lot of the properties that are handed over, this property, the property that we live in, they normally have large tiles. And then you've got a threshold for the bathroom, the front door, all the rest of it. It usually sits about 6 to 8 millimeters high. You could actually install on top of that tile an SPC, for example. So it looks like wood, or it looks like concrete, or it looks like whatever material you want. It'll go straight on the top. They'll be done in 3 days.
The threshold remains there because it's on the left. Yeah.
And it's other stuff. I've seen some amazing transformations of kitchens where they've just wrapped them. So if you take an old kitchen, so they did change the countertop as well, but they kept the carcass. They wrapped the cupboard doors. They changed the countertop to, like a marble or a silestone, whatever it is. They put in a cooker tap, and it looked like $100,000 kitchen. But it was the same kitchen. Maybe they spent $25,000.
So they hadn't even took any of it out. It was just a wrap. Yeah.
A lot of people, and if you think about, so to do the flooring, to do the kitchen, wrapping a kitchen, if you say the property's 4,000 square feet, maybe you want to do the master or the family bathroom as well, and the powder room. All of that to look like it was a decent amount of money is being spent on it. You could probably get away with all of that for about $150,000. Doesn't need to be expensive, but the installation has to be good. Because if someone walks in and the SPC isn't sticking down properly and it's a bit bouncy, or you go into the bathroom and there's a gap where the tap is out of the wall and the tap is just hitting the sink with the water, and the sink smells like, there's lots of things that can really, and if you spend that 200, you could probably demand, depending on where it is, $500,000 more than what your neighbor is for a standard property. You could do it all in 2 weeks.
Stands out more, doesn't it? You walk in and it's just got that nicer feel.
People just want to know they haven't got to spend any money when they move in. Is this good enough or better? Yes, it is. Brilliant. Take my money.
Good tips. Can you tell us any real life stories of renovations that have turned into financial disasters? We covered that.
I think, that's the 3 that we picked up this year with the contractor ran.
If you can give one piece of advice each to somebody sitting watching the show going, right, I want to do this renovation, apart from call you.
That was going to be my advice. I've got an answer to that one.
They should call you. But if they want to go it alone, is there any key advice you can give them? And what to think about, where to start, or how to avoid that mistake? Because I'm sure there's a mistake a lot of new investors make.
I think it also depends on, so we get different kinds of clients. We've got people that have been here for a while and have some idea of what's going on in the market and so forth. Then we've got people that are just looking externally at investment opportunity, no idea about the lay of the land, don't know the difference between a developer. And then you've got some that are just looking to flip properties, and they could be here or whatever. And I think, the point that was made earlier is that a good project manager on the ground here, regardless of where you are in this and where you fit into that sort of labeling, can be worth their weight in gold. And it's just to have someone on your side with that kind of experience who knows what's going on and can explain to you why certain things are happening. They can they're like a sort of a soothsayer and say, I know what's going to happen. It's this project, it's this developer. I bet you in 6 weeks, this is what's going to come up. And then sure enough, 6 weeks, they're like, oh, there we go. And just having that peace of mind, it's like I said before, will save you money. It will save you time. It will reduce the stress, because it can be super stressful, especially on the residential project, especially if it's your baby, it's your thing. This is what you want to do. It's so stressful. And just having that additional resource on your side, looking out for you, that would have to be the top recommendation.
Is there key differences in what the investors who want to renovate to sell on and people who want to renovate to live in? Is there any specific key differences that they want in their projects and their renovations, or are they quite similar? Is there a different focus?
I mean, I would say that an investor who's just looking at making from a commercial perspective will just look at, how do I maximize that delta? How much is it going to cost me? How much can I get it, off the market for by doing certain things? And then just look into that margin to say, well, how can I maximize that?
Do they try to maybe pull back, scrimp on a few things here and there if they're not, whereas people who are going to live in it want a bit more value, or is it the other way around?
It depends also on the personality of the buyer, because sometimes they say, well, no, I'm a perfectionist, and even though I'm going to sell this, I want the best of the best. Then you've got people who are sort of at that point where, well, this is what my budget is. And the point that David made earlier about value engineering, some people look at that as really negative, saying, well, it's just a way to cut costs. But in some residential projects where I have a limited budget, and you show me two products that have pretty much the same guarantee, warranty, length of life, and I look at them and I can't tell the difference, that this one's 15% cheaper, then let me have that one. And so there's different ways. And then there's some people saying, no, I want that one. I don't care how much it costs. Put it everywhere. Okay, you do realize how much it's going to cost. Yeah, that's not a problem. So it does depend on where they are, where they're on the spectrum.
On the individuals, as opposed to if they're an investor or an end
and
user.
also then there's, we do a mixture of commercial and residential. There's a lot more emotion involved on the residential side of things, and third parties, or not third party.
Do they get very involved? This is a woman thing, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
Let me see what's happening. What you're doing now? Yeah. Are the men easier to deal with? So I'm not plugging women very well.
No,
but we are. It's emotional.
It does depend on personality, but I would say if we were to say on average, yes,
we can cut that.
Right. No, keep it in there. No, because I'm going to add to it.
Yeah.
Look, there have been multiple projects in the past where the husband has taken a bit of a backseat. And he was like, no, this house is for my wife, it's for the family. I don't have a designer's eye. She's going to take care of absolutely everything. And then, the 3Ds come back and the wife's absolutely over the moon. They've hit the nail on the head. And the husband is like, can I have a man cave? Can we just make sure that there's PowerPoints there? Because I want to get a racing simulator. I also need a drinks cabinet. I want to make sure that we've got a bar. And I'm like, can you tell your wife? Yeah, and he's no. It's just
going to put this in.
Put the power there. She doesn't know yet. We had a guy that so there was a plan originally for a sauna, steam, massage, like a treatment room, and just kind of like lounge-ish seating. That was what was in the brief from the wife. What they ended up with was moving the treatment room and the lounge area upstairs and having an indoor golf simulator. So that was the trade-off. Now, thankfully...
Does she know?
Well,
it's finished.
Well, I think it was more in a very polite way. Look, I'm paying for this villa. I've got nothing of my own so far. I just want that. And he did get it, and he was very happy with it. Yeah. But I think one of the other pieces of advice that I would give is start engaging with one or two companies when you're looking to buy the property. Don't wait until it's completed, because you can do a lot of work whilst you're waiting for the transaction to take place. Even if that transaction falls through, you're probably still going to buy another villa that looks like this in that community, just in a different plot. So you can get a lot of stuff done. The other thing that I find is quite prevalent here is pushing the contractor too hard on cost. So if and we had it last week, the prices came back in, and the client said, look, I want 3 contractors from your side. I've got 2 of my own. So I was like, yeah, sure. Prices came back in. It was like 1.1, 1.15, 1.2 for argument's sake from ours. And then from his side, it was 1.2, 800. And he was like, well, how can these guys do it for 800? And I was like, well, show me the BOQ and I'll tell you where they're hiding costs and all the rest of it. Yeah. And cut a long story short, the BOQ itself was actually pretty comprehensive. The unit rates were pretty much the cost, which means we all know how much things cost, right? So even if you're a tradesman, you can go to Rack Ceramics. They give you a decent trade discount, and then you make the margin on the client, and the client still sees the same price as what they would if they go in the showroom, if that makes sense. And I said to the client, I was like, they're making no money on this. They are literally doing it for cost, which tells me one of two things. Number one, they're either going to sting you for variations throughout the project, or they're going to cut corners. Or number two, they really need the money because the salaries are coming up and they're going to potentially use your advance to finish that project, to get that money, to then fund yours. I was like,
it's a red flag.
Major red flag.
Yeah.
Where's your profit in this? Nobody works for nothing. Well, how? But there's another thing.
But I would say dovetail that with, if a contractor says, so if you take the other four, they're kind of, 1.1 to 1.2, do a little bit of negotiation, but let the contractor feel like that this is a project worth pursuing and worth putting labor on and worth prioritizing. That's the most important thing. If that contractor gets the number that he feels is motivating for him and his company, and they say, I will sign on the dotted line to say that I can deliver this in 16 weeks, then they will be more welcoming to payment penalties. So if you say, right, I tell you what, Mr. Contractor, you're at 1.15. Let's close this out at 1.1 because I want you to make profit and I want you to be incentivized and I want you to prioritize my project. But I have to be in those 16 weeks that you're signing for. For every day that you're not in, are you okay for us to draft into the contract 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 dirhams a day for every day that you're late? If I make a change, we add the time on at the back. If it's an oversight on your part, we take it out of the final payment. 9 times out of 10, they'll agree if they've put a sensible timeline forward. So that type of arrangement, it's just good business health.
It's working together for that goal that's mutually beneficial. And
exactly.
Good.
So yeah.
Great. Thank you. Last question. Where can our listeners find trusted resources for navigating their renovation projects successfully?
If only there was a website for
I know.
that.
Am I allowed to say it now?
Go on.
Contractors Direct.
Contractors Direct. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll have a lot of people visiting to do their research and your calculator.
And we do quite a lot of blog posts and stuff to try and put some of this stuff out there on the website so that it is available so that people can get at least that sort of strong foundation of understanding what, where and how. And then of course, feel free to engage with us through the platform and then our system kicks into place and try and help you get what you want and get the best contractors for the job.
And I know we've talked a lot about some disasters here, there, and things to watch out for. But I know yourselves, you just want people to have good renovation projects and good experiences. So it's education.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing more satisfying for us when either a residential commercial project finishes and they say, come and have a look. And we go in and you at the ribbon cutting, and you're like, oh, this is really cool. This is really nice. Yeah, the whole thing came together. And the client's going, I'm really happy with this. You're like, brilliant.
And like we were talking, the referral business then comes, isn't it? The proof's in the pudding. And if you're used again and again, then obviously it's a great testimony. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Great to have a chat with you this morning. And
Thanks
appreciate your time.
Been a pleasure. Thank you for the coffee. It was awesome.
It was all right.
And the hospitality.
I'm a good coffee maker, so I've been
Very
told.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Property Talk from Louisa's Lounge. Hope you enjoyed today's chat. And as always, if you have any comments, suggestions, or any questions, please do get in touch. And we hope you tune in again soon. Thank you.